had a couple of questions that are worth kind of revisiting a little bit. One of them is that if, I imagine many of you are seeing the error two uppercases being called on undefined or something like that. That's very common to see when it's looking for a component that is not there for whatever reason. A common reason for that is that you forgot to put a module.exports equals something at the bottom of one of your files, or that you named the file wrong. Sorry, that you mistyped var movie tile layout equals require, then movie tile layout in there. If you misspell that, that'll cause it. Or you miscapitalized something, misspelled the variable name. There's a myriad of reasons that could be. Okay, so any questions before we start moving on? Cool. So, let's go ahead and start with kind of doing the rating stars, right? They're kind of fun. So, I'm going to come in here, require React. Class rating stars. Extends react.component. Okay, needs a render function. It does not need a constructor. Okay, and so just so you know, like what we're actually going to be building here, just kind of like a 10-star rating thing, right? So like they're giving us back an IMDb score of like this is a 6.8 out of 10. So we're just going to make a little component that you feed in what the actual score is that they got and out of how many. And then it'll do, if it's 6.8, for example, it'll do 6 filled stars, 1 half-filled star, and then 3 unfilled stars, right? Kind of a useful, reusable component that we just have to feed some props into, and it displays some nice, beautiful data for us. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to discover how many filled stars there are. We're going to say math.floor this.props.score, right? So like, for example, if you have a 7.9 out of 10, you have 7 filled stars, right? Okay. Then you're going to ask, does it have a half? You're going to say has half equals this.props.score minus filled is greater than 0.5, right? So if you have a 7.9 out of 10, you're going to take the score, which is 7.9 minus 7. Is that greater than half? Yes. Then it has a half star.
Greater than or equal?
Sorry?
What about equal?
If it's equal, yeah, I mean, that's fine too. That's actually probably true. Good point. Touche. Okay, and then we're going to say max, or it's how many stars it has. So if you notice, this is actually a really common pattern that I'm showing you right here. I'm saying this.props.whatever. I'm inventing the data that I need, right? I've actually have not given it to it yet, but I'm assuming that later I'm going to feed that data into it. So I'm kind of making up my interface as I go of data that I'm actually going to need. Yeah. Yeah. They are, but I just wanted to simplify the workshop. So the question was, do you still use prop types with the ES6? And the answer is yes. React has some type validation that it can do for you. Like, for example, score, right? I can validate that this is a number, and then if you try and pass a string in there, it will give you a meaningful error that you passed in a string. We're omitting all of that stuff for simplicity's sake right now. In other words, it's not required, only useful. Okay? So var empty equals this.props.max minus filled. And then in just a sec, if it has half, we'll decrement that. So, okay, now we're going to have stars, which is going to be a array of a React component. Okay. And then we're going to say for, we can use let. Let's kind of fancy. Let I equals 0. I is less than filled. I plus plus. Stars dot push. Okay, and then we're just going to put a little React component in here. We're going to use font awesome. Those are just font awesome. I imagine most of you have at least dealt with font awesome at one point. But these are CSS classes that are specific to font awesome. Okay. Let, this is a ES6 feature that is, it is block scoped instead of function scoped. So what's nice about using let right here is like once this for loop is done, this let just disappears, right? Like it's no longer defined after this block. Real cool. Okay, then you're going to say if has half, which this is just a Boolean up here, right? So if it has half, first of all, we're going to do is empty, or it's going to be decremented, right? Because you're going to have 1/2 star, right? And then you're going to say stars dot push half star. It's going to be FA star half O. It's kind of a weird name, but whatever. Okay. And then here we're going to use let again. Let I equals 0. I is less than empty. I plus plus. Okay. And then we're just going to, in fact, you can even just like copy this. Actually, this whole thing, sorry. If you're lazy like me. And then just change star to star O. Okay? So hopefully you're kind of getting here. Is I actually haven't gotten to the return statement yet. Before you actually get to the return statement, you can do like a whole bunch of setup of like modifying your elements, getting your class names all right, getting all the numbers correct, and then doing your return statement. It's a pretty common practice. But we're going to put our return statement down here. This is where we're actually going to like return the component to render it. Okay, and then we're just going to give it a div, class name equals rating dash stars. And this one's kind of a fun little line. You're going to say stars.map L. Yeah? I think it's kind of cool. Let's see, let me put that up there a little bit. So just to talk about that. Inside of the curly braces, again, is a JavaScript expression, right? Then we're doing stars, which is just this array that we've been preparing, right? And then we're doing a map, which is going to apply to everything in that array. Then L is going to be whatever the element is. In this case, it's going to be a React component, right? And then it's going to return L, right? So we've actually already set up everything. We just have to return it now, right? Actually, the dangers of live coding, I think you can actually just do this because I think it's not even modifying itself. Oh, that's fun. Let's stick with this because I know this works. Okay. So now we've created this component, and now we have to export it as well. Module.exports equals rating stars, right? So we just need to export the class that we've been working on. Okay, save that. Now let's go back to our movie tile layout. We're going to say var rating stars equals require / rating stars, okay? And now we're going to replace where it says star right here, right? I feel kind of like Bob Ross right now, like we're going to put some happy stars here. Okay. Rating stars. So, a couple of things here. We have to give it two things. One of them is we have to give it a max, right? So in this particular case, the score is out of 10. And then we have to give it the score, which is this.props.imdb rating, which just comes in from the API, right? Okay. So save. Let's go back over here. Did I break it? I broke it. Okay. Unexpected token on 33.4 in rating stars. So 33 is right there. Needs to be inside a render. Yeah. Everyone see what I did there? I put the return statement outside of render. Nice. Good job. Oh, broke it. Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay, so another fun one. Stars needs to be an array, or else it's not going to work. It's trying to call push on undefined. Okay, compiled. Cool. So, oh, they are there. They're just over the, whoa, CSS problems. Awesome. So that means that I must have broken my layout somewhere. So let's just give it a little gander real quick. What's that?
You have a movie tile info div that you need to wrap the choice around?
Oh.
That's the info wants to be titled, and then you should wrap those all in a div.
Yeah. Oh, let's see. Movie tile. This should be info. And right? Does movie? I think rating stars goes in there as well. And this should be title, right? All right. I'll go back over in just a sec. Let me just make sure I unbroked it. Yeah, I unbroked it. Cool. Okay, so I just messed up my HTML. Movie tile info was supposed to be like an encompassing div, and then it was supposed to be enclosing all of these, right? At this point, I would also be not mad at all if you just went and copy and pasted movie tile layout from completed, because it's actually not really a lot to learn there. So, okay, so let's talk about what went on here. Oh, I fixed the pictures during the break. Are people still having problems with the posters? Okay, let's talk about that too. So I made these like incompatible, which was not my brightest moment. Okay, so First of all, something to fix here. You can actually make this just sorry, I'm in movie tile layout. You can make this, excuse me, background image. Grab some water here. React is smart enough to put that dash in there for you. In fact, it prefers to, because that way you don't have to put it in quotes, which is nice. So make that background image like that. Okay. Now, if you are using the real API client, this should work like this, where you're actually just putting the raw IMG in there, right? If you are using the local client, so let me just go enable that, okay? Then you're going to have to do public /img/ that. Yeah, and that should work. Let me just go check. Yeah, that'll work. Yeah. Yeah, that's actually where I was thinking I was putting it, but I had already started typing. But yeah, he's got a good point. You can also put it right here. Just say public, or sorry. Public /image. Yeah, that would work too. Okay, hopefully that fixed the problem for most of you. Someone still having any problems with the posters? Crap, yeah. All right, let's keep going. Okay, let's make sure it's still unbroked. Oh, now I have to go back and use the other client. No. Okay, cool. So yeah, that rating star thing is kind of cool, right? Because now it's totally reusable, right? Like it's completely decoupled from necessary layout. And so if later we're like rating actors or directors or something like that, we can just throw it on there, and let's say they're out of 7 instead of out of 10 for whatever dumb reason. You can just say max equals 7, throw on the score, done, right? Super reusable, super cool. So this is another kind of mentality to get into with React, is like, how can I abstract this out into useful, reusable components? Because then you get a uniform look and feel, you get uniform behavior, and you don't have to type code. Like it's awesome, 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 awesome. Instead of like writing broken code in like 10 different places. You just write broken code in one place, and then everything breaks. If you're like me. Okay. So, any questions on that? It kind of concludes at least the first pass of layouts. Hopefully the paradigm kind of makes sense to you, that you're separating your behavior from your content. I see lots of blank stares, which I can only assume means yes, I totally understand. Okay, cool. We're going to put in a little header real quick. So let's open header.jsx. Okay. Let you guess what the first line is going to be. Okay. Class header. Render. Let's see. Okay, just a bunch of markup right here. Header. Class name equals app-header. Okay. Div class name equals app-header __ inner. Stop that. Okay, and I'm going to say h1 class name equals app header underscore underscore title. And this is the Fluent Flix app. I'm the best at naming things at like 3 in the morning. Surprised myself. Okay. So this is going to be kind of a new one for you. We're going to say this, we're going to make a select that its value is going to be this dot props dot layout. So we're going to make a little selector in our header that we can swap the layouts from a tile view to a list view. And this select is going to be the switch for that. Oops, except I don't want to close that yet. You have to give it a class name too. App dash header underscore underscore display select. Okay. Give it 2 options. Keep forgetting I don't have Emmet on here. So the one thing you might be wondering is typically selects don't actually have value on them unless you're coding in React, then they do have values. That'll make sense in just a second. Okay. Make sure you export that bad boy. Okay. So, a key note is that that select is not two-way data bound. Now that's why everyone was so infatuated with Ember and Knockout and Angular when they came out, is that two-way data binding was free, right? Like you just say like ng model equals layout, bam, done. Can move on. Turns out maintaining two-way data bound apps is both inefficient, right? Like they're not very efficient at doing so. And secondly, can turn into quite a mess because it's often difficult to tell how things are getting modified and when and how. Because what is modifying it lives in the template, and what is, you know, where it's actually modified is in your controller. It's kind of a mess. So we'll see here in just a sec that React is explicit, that you must actually tell it to modify itself. See a hand somewhere? Maybe not. Yeah. Yeah. Sure. So he asked me to go back to rating stars real quick and just go over the map line again. Let me rewrite this, and hope maybe this will shed some clarity on it. So that's equivalent. It's a function that takes in L as a parameter and returns L. So this was ultimately short because when you only have one element, or sorry, one parameter, you don't have to put parentheses around these, but you can do that if that's more clear for you. And it does. So you can actually do this, and that's what I was kind of musing about before. Yeah, I think this would still work. Yeah, it does. So, because it's already an array, React knows how to deal with it. So that's kind of neat. Okay, does that answer your question? Cool. Yeah, so let's go ahead and put header in then. So we're going to go back to index.jsx. Cool. And before movies list, so right here, put in header, and we're going to put in this dot, oh sorry, it's going to be layout equals this dot state dot layout, right? Cool. And so now that we have a layout state, we also need to give it an initial state. So we're going to say layout's initial state is going to be like tile, right? Oh, with a comma. So we're going to be able to flip back and forth between tile and list views. We're going to start with tile because we already have that one coded, and then we're just going to pass that into header. It's not actually going to change anything right now, but right now we're just kind of getting the wiring in place so that we will be able to change it. And also so I can demonstrate my point. Okay, so back here. Refresh. Now we got a little header at the top. It's kind of cool. And we got this little thing here. Now, if it's working for you, I want you to try and change that. Notice that it's not changing. Pretty sure HTML forms are supposed to change when you tell them to change. So why? Why isn't it changing? Because it's not two-way data bound. I knew you were going to say that. I saw it. Cool. So that's why. So we're going to make it so now that it can change. So go back to header. And now we're going to have to do handling events. Which seems to me kind of an important thing these days in newfangled UIs. Handle layout event. Okay. So this is going to be pretty simple. We're just going to create a function that says this.props.change layout. And we're going to pass in e.target.value. Okay. So this is me making up my interface as I go, right? That typical React pattern that I was describing to you before. I'm going to need a function from the parent to change its layout. This is going back to that one-way data flow that the children can't modify the parents. All they can do is get a callback from the parent, say, hey, sometime down the road I'm going to have to call this function to say, like, hey, I had a change layout event, panic everybody and re-render everything. Or not panic, but whatever. Okay, and then this is going to take in an E, or that's just shorthand for event. That's not a React thing. I think that's just a JavaScript thing. You can say event if you're more comfortable with that. That's, just fine. Okay, and then we also have to put the handler on here, so we're going to say on change this dot change layout. Okay, now if you've done React before, you're typically used to just saying this dot change layout being done. Now, React is sick of your crap and it wants you to do more in this relationship. So you actually have to bind this yourself. This is recent. This is just with the most recent version of React. They used to auto-bind that context for you, and now you actually have to do it yourself or it won't for you.
In ES6.
With ES6, correct. Cool. So we follow? Yeah. What did I do? One more time. Yeah. The on change in the select. Yeah, this change layout dot bind. Yes, you're correct. Yeah, sorry. Handle layout event. Thank you. See, this is why I just need to do all my coding for work in front of a live audience of 200 people. It'd be awesome. There should be an app for that. Okay, sorry. Cool. So something you might be thinking though is you could say this.props.change layout and just do it directly there. Actually, that'd be, well, I mean, you can do it. You can do it. This is just a personal preference, but something I would strongly suggest as a best practice for React is always handle the events in the same component that they happen in, and then use that opportunity to then call parent events. Because often you're going to have to do more data munging than rather than just passing it straight up in one line, and it's a real big pain in the ass to have to change it every single time that goes back and forth. So I just recommend always handle the event where it happens, and then pass up. Okay, save. So let's go back to index, because now we invented this layout. Now we have to go. Oh, sorry, we invented this function. Now we actually have to go make it. So we're going to go. It's called change layout, right? It's going to take in like a name, something like that, whatever you want to call it. Okay, and then we're going to say this dot set state layout name, right? And this way, this will change up here, right? This layout. Okay? Now, the next thing we have to do is we have to make sure that it gets passed down to the header, right? If you don't actually give header the function, it can't call the function. So, here, in header, we're going to say change layout equals this dot change layout dot bind this. Again, we have to call this set state here to be able to change the state of the component. So it's important what this is, right? So we have to tell JavaScript, right? Like, I need this to always be my app component. Otherwise, it's going to try and call it on your the header component, which there's no state for layout. Yeah? I just see like ocean of blank. Okay, so if I leave off bind this in header when it calls this.props.change layout, it's going to call that function, right? It's going to find it, but it's going to call it with this being the context that of header, not app, right? And it needs to be app, because that's where the state is actually kept. Okay, I see more nodding heads. I feel a little bit better about that. Okay, so save. Make sure that, okay, gulp is still running. Refresh. Did I lose internet? I might have lost internet. Oh, no, maybe that one was going to change. Oh, yes. Whew. Nailed it. Okay, now you can actually change this. And though it's not actually doing anything yet, that state is changing internally. So let's go actually make it do something. So that'll be interesting, right? Any questions? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so he's getting a warning that says you need a unique, I'm getting it too, just so you know. Each child narration have a unique key. This is what we were talking about earlier. And this is just me being lazy and not wanting to fix it because it doesn't actually do anything right now. Because that key, sorry, those rating things aren't actually changing, so it doesn't really matter. If you wanted to make it like unique, you could like say like var I equals 0 and actually track the iteration, right? And then give each one a unique key, and it would get rid of it. Because again, that's just React trying to keep track of like which component belongs to like which data belongs to which component, because they can switch order, and React wants to be able to do that in the most efficient way possible. So if you give it a unique key, you can say, okay, well, 2 and 1 swapped. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to pluck one out, put it there, rather than like completely wipe out this component, completely wipe out this component, give them all new data, which is less efficient. So it's just React trying to be proactive about being efficient. Good question. Any other questions? Cool. We're just going to live with that warning for now. OK, so let's go to, I think this is all done. Yep. So now we actually have to give it a new layout to be able to swap to, right? So now we're going to go implement movie list layout. Okay, so go over here to movie list layout. Okay. We're going to do the lazy way because there's other cooler stuff that I want to talk about, and there's nothing really interesting about what's going on in movie list layout. So go to completed real quick and grab movie list layout. Just copy and paste, copy pasta that business, just right over there. Bam. Awesome. I wish all programming was that easy. It's like, hey, I'm going to look at the already completed project and just pull it out of there. As you can see, it's almost entirely just CSS classes changing and a little bit of structural change. And it also has a little plot line as well, which is kind of neat. It looks like it has public image. If you're using the real API, make sure that you take that out. Since I'm using the real API, I'm just going to pull that out. Sorry, did anyone see what I did right there? Took out public image right there. Cool. All right. So it is almost the same. Okay, go back to index. Okay, and we're going to say var movie list layout equals require movie list layout. Okay. Here in render, this is another pattern that you'll see a lot in React. So we're going to say var layout. Sorry, and then we're going to say if this dot state dot layout triple equals tile, layout equals movie tile layout, else layout equals movie list layout. Yeah. Okay. It's just a simple if-then, right? And then we're going to pass this into movie container. So rather than this movie tile layout, we're just going to give it layout, right? Any questions about that? Should be pretty straightforward. Okay, save. And let's refresh. Okay. So we got tile. Now what happens if we switch to list? Whoa, head explode, fireworks. Stuff changed, right? Changed to an entirely different layout. And then you can just switch back and forth. Now, why is this cool? This is cool because we didn't have to duplicate any sort of behavior. All we had to do is just code up some new lookup markup, throw it in the layout, just let the movie container take care of it, right? We were able to utilize the existing structures in place. So it quickly becomes a CSS problem and a markup problem rather than like a behavior problem. Now you can actually get pretty sophisticated with this pattern. You can actually like hook into events and a whole bunch of other really cool things. It's kind of, I don't know if you would call it an anonymous component, right? Because if we go back to our markup in container, right, that's kind of an anonymous component that we're passing in, and it doesn't really care what's in there. It's just like, I don't know what you are, but have a movie and do things. I don't really care. So, pretty cool. So, any questions? Hopefully you're seeing like how this could be useful. Yeah.
That pattern of variable and then setting whether it's the layout right there, why not just put it into a function call? Is there a reason you do that pattern that way?
The reason why I do the conditional, like structured the way it is.
Well, it's rather than just bar, why don't we just have a function call and try to determine what you have in?
Yeah, I mean, you could do it that way. So, he's asking, going back here to index.jsx, whatever that was, this one. Why am I structuring it this way where I have this if statement up here? You know, if state is this, then do this, if, or else do that. You could put it in a function, right? And like the function could return to you which one you needed, in which case you would just say like, you know, choose layout, right, or something like that. That would work. If you wanted to do like a ternary in there, that would work too. There's a couple ways to do it. The one that I would say avoid is, let's just say this. Actually, you know what? This wouldn't even be that bad either, now that I'm looking at it. You could do it this way as well. So, oh, that's not what I wanted to do. Okay. Good question, though. But I guess that brings up a point that something I like about React quite a bit is that often best practices for React are just JavaScript best practices, right? I mean, you got this React layer, right? But most of it just is kind of adhering to JavaScript functions, like you use map instead of some fancy directive for it. I guess what I'm getting at is like there's an Ember way to do things, there is an Angular way to do things, and you have to learn like the correct idiomatic Angular way. And there's some of that in React as well. But I would say more of React errs on the side of like, what's the JavaScript thing to do, right? So for example, how to do a conditional up there. Do which way you feel like is the JavaScript way to do it. Yeah. Pass the component into the state. Oh, and you could just track it into the state. I would really strongly recommend against doing that. And the reason, so he asked like, why don't I just do this and say movie tile layout and then swap those back and forth in the state? Because now you're making React do a lot of heavy lifting detecting if those are different. Yeah, it's unpleasant for React. I guess because it uses that state a lot internally. Now we're probably splitting hairs, right? Like it's definitely not going to make a difference in this app, but it's a lot easier to track a string. Yeah. Good question though. More questions? Cool. Let's do, this is more just to kind of hit home like the practice of keeping track of state and using that state to do different sort of things. So we're going to implement search, of being able to search the OMDB API. So let's go back to header. Okay. Now this is going to have to start keeping track of state, so we're going to have a constructor. Which takes some props, super props, and we're going to say this dot state equals term. So we're going to keep track of like a search term, right? Like a query of some sort. So you can search for like, I want to see all your Tron movies or James Bond or whatever. So, okay, that's all we need in our constructor. Okay, and now we're going to go into here underneath the select, right? Yeah. We're going to put in a form. And we're going to put an input on here. Now the reason why we're putting it in a form rather than just doing a just the input without the form is because we want to listen on for submit events, and putting it on a form makes that super duper simple. Sorry, value equals this dot state dot term, right? So it's going to coordinate with this one up here. Okay, give it a class name of app header search. Type equals text. And placeholder equals search. Okay, search. Save that. I think that's all we need right now. So this should at least get the input on the page for us. Okay, refresh. Now you got like a nice looking search box up there. Yeah? Now try and type in the search box. I promise I'm typing. I'm not just bullshitting you right now. So it's not working, right? Like it should not be working for you. If it is working, then you actually do have a bug. Weird. Okay. Why? Why is this not working? This is the same reason why the select didn't work before, that there's no two-way data binding there, so you actually have to explicitly tell React when they type on the keyboard, they're modifying a variable. Because every time you type into an input, React says, oh, I know things are happening, I'm going to re-render, right? And so the term still hasn't changed, right? So it's still rendering a blank string, even though you put like F in, like React's like, no, it's still a blank string, you're wrong. Thanks, React. So let's go change it to actually, do that. So we're going to do a handle term event. This dot props, rather this dot set state. Oops. And we're going to say term equals e.target.value. Again, this e is just an event. It's actually a synthetic React event, but you can treat it just like a normal DOM event. There's parity with that API. Right? So e, it's pulling out the target, which is that input, and then it's pulling out the value of that, and then setting state. Okay? Now we have to go down to input and actually, on change equals this dot handle term event dot bind this, right? Just so you know, there's a bunch of these. There's on change, there's on click, there's on double click, there's a few of them. Okay, save that. Refresh. Now type in here. Now it actually should work, because it is actually modifying the the internal state. We follow? Yeah? Cool. I'm actually seeing like a few nodding heads. Yeah. Yeah. So the input's right there, the handle term event's right there. Yeah, make sure you do bind. Super important. Pain in the butt, but you just get used to it. Cool. So let's actually do something with that. So let's kind of do it the other way. Let's go to index and actually implement the searching first, and then we'll go back and actually make it submit. Okay, so now we're actually going to need OMDB at this layer because we're going to do the searching at this layer. So we're going to say var OMDB equals require OMDB client, and I'll just put the other one there so you remember how it goes. Require / OMDB, or sorry, fake OMDB client. I'm going to comment that one out, but if you're using the local version, go ahead and use that one.